All right, let's welcome Nthakoana Ngatane on the line all the way from Lesotho for more details. Nthakoana, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, we do know that today the special service votes are taking place and that your journalists, of course, and the staff that will be working and the IEC staff as well. How is that fared today?
Good morning, Alicia. Yes, around the country we expect that district offices as well as the main centers here in the capital, Maseru, the IEC staff, security personnel, medical personnel, emergency services, journalists, and anybody who will be working or observing the election on the 3rd of June is expected to be voting today. They were supposed to have got certificates and approval from the Independent Electoral Commission proving that indeed they need to be voting today. So all of that is expected to get underway this morning. We are going around to check, and we will check with the IEC later on today how it went. But essentially, this is the first test to see if indeed the Independent Electoral Commission is ready for this election. The SADC Observer Mission has said when it was launched on Thursday that as far as it is concerned, the IEC is ready, Lesotho is ready, and the atmosphere is peaceful. But opposition parties have continued to say that security is of concern. They had specifically requested that the army should not be anywhere in sight because army helicopters will be used and pilots will be used to ferry ballot papers to voting stations that are outside of areas that are accessible. So for now, it is a wait and see. We will check around midday what the IEC has to say. At this point in time, they're still sorting themselves out and opening voting stations, those special voting stations. Alicia?
All right. Now, with the special votes, Nthakoana, now of the elderly, the sick, and of course the disabled or pregnant, when will those votes take place?
Well, Alicia, actually this special vote is intended for all of those people who will not be able to go to the voting stations on the day that ourselves or anybody else is able to do that. So they ought to have applied or made special requests to be voting today. But of course, there are those who will be voting on the actual voting day, and I guess we'll expect to see what the IEC or what the parties or all the stakeholders will be able to do to assist them on the voting day itself.
All right. Now, Nthakoana, security was a huge issue in relation to these polls. Has that been addressed? I mean, are there any fears at this stage? And is the IEC or even the police officials ready to deal with any eventuality? You've just mentioned there that the political parties have asked that the army should be nowhere near any of the polls.
Well, the opposition, particularly the former Prime Minister Tom Thabane, had said when he met with the facilitator, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, on his visit to Lesotho, that their special request is that the army should not be involved in these polls at all. But the army has come out to say that Thabane is not Prime Minister or the commander of the army, so he cannot tell them what to do. But we have got the assurance from SADC yesterday when they launched, or rather on Thursday, when they launched their mission, that they spoke to the Prime Minister, and as far as the Prime Minister is concerned, the only role that the army will play in this election is to ferry ballot papers to inaccessible areas by helicopter. So in other words, army pilots and army helicopters will be used to ferry those ballot papers, but the army will not play any part in this election. But the other issue of security that has come up, and that was brought up by a professor of political science at the National University of Lesotho, Dr. Motamele Lekapa, who said that looking at how high the stakes are in this election, it is likely that the losers may not accept the outcome. So observers and all the stakeholders must make sure that if the election is declared free, fair, and credible by observers, whoever loses the election should accept the outcome. But they should be on the lookout in any eventuality in case that happens. And of course, the army has been accused of planning to stage a coup if the current government doesn't win. And the army has come out to say that is not true, to dispute those statements, to say that they're not true.
Nthakoana, look, you know, this debate has been coming up quite a lot, even here in South Africa. The issue of parties having to start thinking about coalitions at this stage, should there not be an outright winner that is declared? I mean, what are some of the talks around? I mean, 7 parties contesting for this. Who wants to go into bed with who?
Actually, Alicia, it's not even 7 parties contesting. It's actually a whopping 30. It's unimaginable in Lesotho. But the 7 that were in this debate, in fact, the 6, because the 7 were invited, the Prime Minister's party, the Democratic Congress, didn't attend. But the 6 that were in the debate are the main ones that are in the forefront. And yes, the likelihood that no one will win outright is very high. We have seen it in the last 2 elections, in 2012 and in 2015. So it is highly likely that no one will win this outright. But of course, the Democratic Congress, the Prime Minister's party, and the Lesotho Congress for Democracy have already, even before the election, gone into an alliance. They fielded candidates together in constituencies, and their supporters are voting for one candidate per constituency. So that is a given. If they win, they're already in a coalition. The opposition has said they have intention to form a government of national unity. So if they don't win outright, we know that the Lesotho Convention will go into coalition with the Alliance of Democrats and the Reform Congress of Lesotho, as well as the Lesotho National Party. So that is a given. But of course, SADC has again said, should Lesotho have implemented the reforms that were suggested and that were advised, we would not have seen this government collapsing. And even if it had, it would have come, or the election would have come at a time when Lesotho would have been able to have a party that wins probably outright, because the constitution and the electoral law and the security and the public sector would have been reformed in such a way that you get a stable government. But SADC again saying they hope that this election will bring a lasting outcome for Lesotho.
I'm very glad that you brought up that word constitution, because there was talk that there should be some certain amendments to that constitution. What in particular are Basutus not happy with when it comes to the current draft of the constitution?
Well, the issues that come out time and time again, Alicia, first of all, is the power of the Prime Minister. We saw it when we were going to these elections, when the opposition won a motion of no confidence. It gave the Prime Minister, who had lost that motion, power to advise the King to call for fresh elections, which is what we are doing now. So they're saying that that is a contradiction in terms, that it gives the Prime Minister that much power. Again, analysts coming out in this debate yesterday to say, in fact, the judiciary is not independent in Lesotho. It depends on the executive. The executive has too much power over other state institutions that are supposed to be oversight bodies over the government itself. And that the intended Human Rights Commission that was supposed to be formed again has been influenced so much by the executive. So basically, the power of the executive, as far as all the parties are concerned, is too much. So they want to limit that. But also the powers of the King, the polarization in the security sector, in the public sector. These are all the issues that have come out. But the floor crossing in Parliament also, when should it happen? How should it happen? When should it be justified to happen? These are some of the issues that we expect to be addressed when those reforms come. And all the parties have signed a pledge to say if they win the election, they will prioritize those reforms. And that's the first thing that they will do, hold a dialogue for the reforms post-elections.
All right, Nthakoana, just a very quick one. I mean, I saw Tom Thabane there addressing some members there at the debate, saying that he didn't come there to be disrespected by kids talking to him like that. But I mean, talk to us about the political climate since the campaigning. You said 30 parties are contesting for this election. How did that all fare out?
Well, at this point in time, it looks all peaceful. Everybody's campaigning as usual, except that the opposition parties are complaining that while the IEC has allocated time on national radio and television for them to campaign, the government is using its power to get extra time. In other words, outside of the allocated time, government is using that to air its own rallies and its own campaigning. So, in fact, one party, the Lesotho National Party, has gone to the Independent Electoral Commission accusing the government of misusing the power that they have and taking up too much time on that state radio. But besides that, in terms of the security, we saw Tom Thabane's bodyguards being disarmed by the police, and again, analysts saying that that could have spiraled out of control, but fortunately for Lesotho, it didn't, because these were armed men who were confronted by the security forces. But besides that, SADC has said that as as far as it is concerned, and the assessment that it has done on the ground since it arrived, it says that for now, the climate is conducive for Lesotho to go to elections on the 3rd of June.
All right. And all the exiled leaders, I mean, seeing Tom Nthakoana fully back in action, campaigning for his party, does this mean that everybody is back now baying for the elections to basically bring Lesotho out of a very long stalemate?
Oh, certainly. In fact, Tom Nthakoana and Tisile Masiribane, who were in exile, as you remember, for almost 2 years, were confronted yesterday by youth who were saying, you cannot say that security is still an issue when you are here with us. But the other partner in that alliance, Keketso Ransu, who is the leader of the Reformed Congress of Lesotho, said to us when they signed the pledge to accept the outcome of the election that, in fact, she still doesn't sleep in Lesotho because Lesotho and South Africa are so close together. You can cross the border and sleep in South Africa. She says that every day she comes into Lesotho to go campaigning, but when she goes to sleep, she goes to South Africa because as far as she's concerned, her security is still not guaranteed. But all of that, for now, I think is at the back seat because the leaders have said that as far as they're concerned, it is more important for them to go out and campaign and get into government. And as I said, all of them believe that this is their ticket. All
right, and Nthakoana, just a very quick clarification on this. Can then the ousted Prime Minister recontest for these elections? Is that what's going to happen?
Oh, absolutely, Alicia, he is. In fact, as I say, his party, the Democratic Congress, is in alliance with the Deputy Prime Minister's party, the Lesotho Congress for Democracy. They have fielded candidates together. So in other words, 3 parties have decided that in the 80 constituencies where one has a candidate, the others will not field a candidate and all the supporters of the 3 parties will vote for the one candidate. And they're saying
very
that,
strategic.
Where they are concerned, that will guarantee them the number of constituencies. But again, experts have said if they do not manage to get those 61 in the constituencies, the risk is that they will probably lost out on the proportional representation side of the vote, which means that they might not get a good share of the 40. So it's a risk that they're taking, but they're saying that is a good risk as far as they're concerned. The opposition at the same time tried to do the same thing, but it fell apart. But they are saying that they know that in areas where they had good votes in the past, they're still going to do that, and they're going to gain ground because of the party that broke away from the Prime Minister's party.
Yeah, very interesting political times in Lesotho. Nthakoana will definitely touch base with you to see how the special votes and ultimately the voting and the results. We're very eager and watching and waited with bated breath to see the outcome of those elections. That is our reporter on the scene in Lesotho, Nthakoana Ngatane, bringing us the latest, of course, as Lesotho prepares to go to the polls for the 5th time in less than 3 years.